So the next step in our process, and it should be the final step for adding, editing, and deleting books, is to delete an existing book. And of course we have this delete button, and it does fire up this nice little dialog at the top, but it doesn't do anything. So let's take care of that. And we have to start in the back end. So let's go to the back end code and look at the roots file. And I'm going to add a root. And the root will be /admin/books/delete. Now, if I add that root right here, let me do it. mux.post/books/delete, and then point it to some handler that doesn't exist yet, say app.deleteBook. That root will never actually fire. And that's because roots are matched from the top to the bottom. And here I have on line 52, a mux post root that says /books/some ID. And that would match /delete. So I actually need to put this one, not here, but before that root, before the book by ID root. Okay, so that root now exists, but the handler doesn't. So let's go write the handler. Over in handlers.go, this is a very simple handler. And I'll put it at the very bottom of the file. And I'll call this func with the app pointer to application receiver, and I'll call it delete book. And give it its 2 required parameters. Okay, now I'm going to assume that for this one, I'm actually going to receive a payload, a JSON payload. I could do it using the URL, and that's actually less code, but we did that last time, and I'm just going to alternate back and forth between approaches. So we get used to them. So var is my request payload. What am I going to read my JSON into? And it's a struct, and it only has one field. ID of type int, and in JSON it will be called ID with the lowercase I. And then I read my JSON. So error is assigned the value of app.readJSON. And I'm going to read using W and R and into request payload. And I check for an error. So I'll copy the error checking code from the previous handler because it's exactly the same and paste it in here. And if I get past that, I have my book ID. So I just call error is now equal to app.models.book delete by ID and give it request payload.id. And I check for an error. So I'll paste that in there. And then I'll give a response. Payload is assigned the type of JSON response with an error equal to false and the message book deleted, and write that out. And I got to put a comma in there. So we'll write it out, app.writeJSON, and I'm going to write with W, http.status, OK, and payload. Okay, so if there's no mistakes, this should recompile, make restart, and it does. And let's go back to our front end and take care of the part where we're actually deleting a book. Now, before I forget, up here, at the very top of bookEdit.view, this should be exactly not equal to. So I'm going to add an equal sign there, okay? And down at the bottom, when I have these buttons, I have float start and float end. I probably should also put a div class equals clearfix in there. It doesn't hurt anything right now the way that it is, but if I ever add anything below this form, it might not render the way that it's supposed to. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping. Now, down here, let's find the delete book method. Confirm delete, right here. So I'm calling /admin/books/delete. I have my payload. I'm passing it the ID. This should all work. It should work now. So let's go back to our front end or to our web browser. And I'll go back to the home page and I'll say admin add a book. So I'll pick a cover. It doesn't matter what the cover is. I'll just pick an image. So I'll choose, say, Carrie. There we are. Okay. And I'll put in a title, some author. I'll just choose Stephen King. Some year, 1980. And some description, desk. So I'm going to delete this in a minute, so it doesn't matter. I'll make it fantasy. So I save that. And I called it title. So I have title. And there's the book cover. Everything appears the way that I chose it. Let's try deleting this. and I shall delete it. And it says it's gone, and it is, in fact, gone from the database. So deleting a book was a pretty painless exercise. Let's move on.